When I say today's a big show, I really mean it. Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. My name is Dave Woodrelli. I'm joined by Harman Dial, and we are very pleased to be joined today by Manny Malhotra. Later in the episode, it's going to be really fun to chat with Manny. Now, people are starting to give Family Feud answers already, Jacob. I'm not to snitch on anybody, but Stuart Hunter said, Malhotra was my thought for the alliterative name Family Feud answer. Oh no, that was last week. Okay, that's not a spoiler. We did that last week. I don't remember who I said, but yeah, Manny Malhotra joins us on today's show. It's going to be a good conversation.
Really funny side tangent, Quads. That
Just
was way to take a great intro. I was just thinking like, wow, you're pumped up, you're on point, and then stumbling through the live chat there, calling people out for in the chat for not even doing anything wrong.
We are going to play Family Feud today. We're going to play it with Manny. No, we're not going to play it with Manny. We're not going to play Family Feud with Manny Malhotra. Maybe he'd like to, but we're not going to do that. We have a lot of good questions for Manny, and I'm excited to do that. We're going to do that around 2:45, so if you're listening on podcast, around the 45-minute mark of the podcast, we'll have Manny Malhotra, of course, Abbotsford Canucks head coach Manny Malhotra, join the show, but it's a packed episode. Marcus Pettersson signed with the Canucks. The Canucks play tonight in San Jose, so we've got a lot to get to. The chat is bumping early, which makes me want to talk about our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Cali Canucks saying quads off the rails for the bingo card. Brimpy Schwingel saying quads stay focused, man. We've got Family Feud later, and I'm already all over the place. I'm confident. I'll be honest. I'm confident heading into today's Family Feud, but why wouldn't I be? We've been on a heater. What are we, like 4 straight wins or something?
Don't jinx it.
Okay. I won't jinx it. Canucks extend Marcus Pettersson. We decided not to do an emergency episode last night, but we did put out a Quads instant reaction video on YouTube. And Harman, I'm sure you had some stuff to do as well last night when the contract was signed. But just your initial reaction to this contract. 6 years for Marcus Pettersson, a cap hit of $5.5 million.
Yeah, I think it's a team-friendly number. I think it's a good contract for the Canucks to sign. They had a need long-term for another high-end top 4 defenseman behind Quinn Hughes and Filip Hronek. I think Marcus Pettersson can be that number 3 guy. And ultimately, when Trance and I were looking at potential contract comparables for Marcus Pettersson, 2 potentially stood out. Esa Lindell as sort of a floor case. He signed for $5.25 million times 5 years, and then the absolute ceiling was sort of Brady Shea at $7 million times 7. And that, of course, is based off ice time and production comparables. We expected a cap hit kind of in the $6.5 million range, especially given that Pettersson's camp presumably had leverage because Canucks gave up a lot to get him. His camp would have known that the organization can't really afford to let Pettersson walk in free agency for nothing. And so for the cap hit to start with a 5, clocking at $5.5 million, I think that's a team-friendly number, especially with the cap going up. Plus, you just look ahead at the UFA market. It's a pretty average crop of top 4 defensemen that are available. Plus, it's one thing for people to say, oh, the Canucks are going to have lots of cap space. Yeah, that's valid, and there will be opportunities to try and mine, but a lot of other teams have cap space too, and so the competition is going to be high. And for the Canucks to be able to get some important business done early, I think is really valuable and a shrewd move by management.
So people have probably already heard my reaction, but obviously I liked the signing, and I broke down the cap math. Believe it or not, I did text a few people to make sure I had it right, but I did break down the cap math, and again, we're talking about year 1 of the deal, which is next season. Cap's going to be at $95.5 million. The percentage of that on the Canucks payroll, player payroll, is 5.76%. Then the next year it's 5.28%. And then in that third year, again, there's 6 years on this deal. The third year where we have the NHL salary cap upper limit confirmed at $113.5 million. In that third year, it's going to take up just 4.87% of the Canucks total player payroll. And at that rate, like again, that basically equates to a $4.29 million cap hit in today's world.
Yeah, it's favorable stuff. And the other thing I'll point out that was interesting from a structure standpoint is he has some signing bonuses in those latter years to make the cap math less favorable for a potential buyout. So I think that's something that Pettersson's camp was able to gain in those talks. But overall, I still look at this as a team-friendly deal for the Canucks. And the most interesting question to me for Marcus Pettersson, what type of impact he's going to have on this team, is seeing how his game is going to adapt now that in Vancouver he's going to be asked to be the main driver, presumably, of his own pair, as opposed to in Pittsburgh, he was a legit number 3 defenseman, but he was an elite supporting piece more than he was the driver of his own pair. He would often play with Erik Karlsson. In the past, he played with Chris Letang, John Marino when Marino was in Pittsburgh and had a lot of success. So Pettersson's used to kind of playing a supporting role for a more dynamic partner, whereas here in Vancouver, we'll see if he plays more with Talon Myers or Filip Hronek, how things shake out long term. But he's going to be asked to take on more of a responsibility to drive things by himself. That's an interesting on-ice question that will be fascinating to keep an eye on.
I think the big thing when I looked at it, and again, when I did instant reaction last night, the biggest thing I came to was just like, this is a legit top 4 guy. It's not a 4-5 that they think can play top 4, which is what Carson Soucy was. It's what Nikita Zadorov was and still is. And I mean, Soucy still is as well, I guess. But we're not talking about a guy that they're like, yeah, he hasn't been used like this before, but we think we can get more out of him. They know what he is. They know what he is. We know what he is. And they've signed him in a good cap hit. I don't know how much more there is to say about this, really.
The other thing that's interesting is you have to keep in mind Quinn Hughes has 2 years left on his contract after this season. We don't even know how massive that contract is going to be with the cap spiking. Is it like 15 million, 16 million, whatever that number is? The Canucks are basically going to be giving him a blank check. It is good for the Canucks to have cost certainty, not just with Pettersson, but also Hronek signed long term. With like Hronek at 7.25 is a pretty good number with the cap spiking. Pettersson at 5.5. To have 2 other top 4 building blocks where you've got that certainty for 6 more seasons, and it's not a case of 3 years from now you're trying to sign Quinn Hughes and you've got other top 4 needs. You've got 2 other pillars signed really long term, not to mention with Willander and DPD, you're going to have some cost controlled RFA seasons from those guys. So I think that shelters you potentially from Quinn's next contract, the fear of, is your cap sheet going to be too top heavy, and how are you going to fill out a high quality blue line for the number 2 to number 5 slots on your blue line. I think between the Pettersson extension, already having cost certainty on Hronek, with Willander and DPD coming and having young RFA cost controlled seasons, the Canucks are well positioned, I think, to be able to absorb a hefty Quinn Hughes raise in 2 or 3 years.
I didn't even think of that aspect. Good analysis. I like that you bring that up. People want us to talk about Drew O'Connor. Let's get to anyone else really early today. Because like I said, Manny Malhotra joining us at 2:45, so we're going to reshuffle things a little bit. But before we move to anyone else, which is our second segment today, let's get to our poll question, which is about this Pettersson contract. Our poll question today is brought to you by HSBC Rugby Sevens. HSBC Vancouver Sevens, where high caliber rugby and the ultimate party weekend collide. SVNS is Western Canada's largest sporting event, and this year is the 10th anniversary of the event. Catch teams from Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China. Wow, this is every team. Trinidad and Tobago. Wow, I shouldn't have done this without reading it. Uruguay, Fiji, France, Great Britain, Ireland, Japan, New Zealand, Kenya, South Africa, Spain, USA, and Japan. There's some men's teams, there's some women's teams in there as well. From February 21st, 23rd, you can catch it all at BC Place. It's going to be the place to be, folks. Grab your friends and your best costume and come on down for the best party in town. Single day tickets are now on sale. Friday tickets are starting from just $50. For the fan that wants to cram all the fun into one day of partying, this is the one for you. So go check it out. HSBC Sevens. Make sure you buy your tickets.
By the way, you know that point I was making about Hughes' next contract and having long-term certainty with some of your top 4 pieces? I didn't even consciously think about that last night. I literally dreamed about that.
Excuse me?
Like, I had a dream about that. I don't know, it was on like Puckpedia or like Cap Wages or something. And I literally dreamed about that. I did not consciously think about that last night. I like woke up and it like popped in my mind.
What do you mean you dreamt about it? Like you dreamt you were sitting at a computer, or like you dreamt?
I dreamt being on like Puckpedia or like Cap Wages, and it's like time for Quinn Hughes to sign, and just being like, oh, okay, well they still have Hronik and Pettersson signed a reasonable hits, Willander on the books, DPD. Oh, they're in a pretty good spot. And so I woke up, and that's the first thing that popped in my mind was that dream.
Some people dream of supermodels. I dream of Noah Dobson contracts that haven't been signed yet, as we know. And Harmon dreams of Puckpedia. Well, both of those dreams are about Puckpedia, actually. Because that Noah Dobson thing really tripped me up. I really thought that Noah Dobson was signed already at $10 million for 8 years. I really thought that was the case. Thanks for bringing that up. That's good. I like it. Let's get to our poll question. Bring it up, Jacob. Technical producer Jacob Lazar. Lisa Martin in the chat, regular listener to the show, said, Harm, you need a vacation if you're dreaming about this stuff. Our poll question today, do you like the Marcus Pettersson contract extension? I probably could have got a little more creative here, I'll be honest, because the results, 97.7% of people say yes and 2.3% of folks say no. But that being said, it also does illustrate that this is a contract that everybody seems to like. Like, I've seen people say, yeah, maybe too many years, but I don't know if I agree with that. Again, if you try to figure out what he would have got on the open market, and I know it's hard right now and it sounds like we're talking out of our ears, but when we start seeing some of these contracts signed, especially in free agency, like you said, a mediocre decrop on the free agent market this free agency period, it's going to be like overpays all over the place. That's what you're going to end up seeing because these teams are going to be desperate to add players and they're going to overpay for pretty mediocre defensemen.
Yeah, I also like with Marcus Pettersson, not just the on-ice impact, but everything I've heard about this guy in Pittsburgh from an on-ice perspective, leadership, has been glowing. He was a beloved teammate in Pittsburgh, and when you think about where the Canucks are at right now, where there's been a lot of locker room dysfunction, JT Miller, who was a really loud, vocal sort of leader in that room, this is a sort of transition phase for this Canucks team, and to have just like a calming veteran influence who's a professional, who has impeccable work habits, who is highly respected by a lot of people around the league. Like, that's the type of character as well that the Canucks just sort of need in this transitory phase as a team sort of tries to rebuild the vibes and the culture around this team.
I really thought this contract would be higher. Like, that's the ultimate thing, is we were talking about this contract starting with 6, maybe even touching 7. I think 7 would be a bit high, but like if they signed him for $6 million average, I don't think we'd be sitting here like, oh my gosh, this is a crazy overpay. 6.5, we'd probably come in and say the same thing of like, okay, well, the cap's going up, so this makes sense. But 5.5, yeah, it's a discount. I didn't expect it, to be honest with you. I didn't think it would be as low as it is, but it is, and it's a good contract, and the poll shows that. Do you want to get to anyone else now? Or should we just start talking about Drew O'Connor? Because that's the next piece of business here, right? Is when you make this trade, obviously they needed to get Marcus Pettersson signed. You don't want to have a rental in a year where you're just fighting for the playoffs. And that's the thing. It's a little different from last year when it was Zadorov, it was Lindholm. It was, okay, you were going for the cup last year. That's what they were doing. And this year, you can't buy at the deadline and say, we're going to get rentals because we're going for the cup this year. You're pacing with the Calgary Flames right now is what you're actually doing. So you have to have an eye on the future with these trades that you're making right now, and clearly that's what they did. They get Pettersson signed. O'Connor, they also want to get him signed. What does that contract look like?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I haven't done a ton of research into comps.
Neither have I, but I have a number in mind.
I am pulling up. Go ahead for yours. I'm pulling up the AFP Analytics contract projections.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what it is with the cap going up, right?
Yeah.
Because look, like, when you get traded for, I think you're coming in at a higher level than, like, a Kiefer Sherwood, who had to test free agency. The question I'm asking myself is, okay, what does Drew O'Connor get in free agency? And, like, I think it starts with a 2, right? I think it's a 2 or 3 year deal, and the cap hit probably starts with a 2, maybe a 2.5. Like, let's not forget Sam Lafferty got 2 years, $2 million from the Buffalo Sabres. Drew O'Connor is better than Sam Lafferty. So I look in that range and say maybe it's 2.5, 3 million, 2 years, 3 years. Let's not forget what Dakota Joshua got as well. I'm kind of in this range.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much bang on. Looking at the projection here, which I think is a little low, to be totally honest with you. It is under the assumption of a $95.5 million cap hit. O'Connor is projected at around 2.1 times 2. I think that's on the lower end.
Sure.
Like you, I'm sort of expecting closer to 2.5 times 2 or 3.
Yeah. And again, like, what did AFP Analytics say about Marcus Pettersson?
They had him around 5.8, 5.9.
Okay. So we'll see what it actually comes in at, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them get a little bit lower than what we're talking about, 2.5, 3 million. It's in that range. It's in that range for sure. Someone's bringing up owner quads in the chat, entering a contract negotiation with a Vibes contract. The agent comes with all the documentation of, well, we think these players are comps. I'm like, no, I'll tell you how it is. I haven't even thought about this until this very moment, but I've got answers for you. And you said I was bang on.
It was a good vibes just opinion.
Thank you. I don't know how to take it when you give me compliments like that. Matteo Massaro said this deal sucks for a fifth defenseman. We're going to get Frank Cervelli on the show soon, folks. The chat is bumping. I love it. I love it right now. There was one someone's pointing out the ice on your neck. What's that all about? When did you get that? It's very nice.
I just like rocking chains once in a while.
Christian A. Holy smokes, looks like Harm also got the bag with the ice on his neck. It looks good. It looks
Thanks,
good.
man.
I like it. Do you ever do the turtleneck, the rock thing? Turtleneck with the chain on the outside? I wore it to a Canucks game once.
Really?
Yeah, so did Faber.
Oh,
Not at the same time.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
No, I don't usually rock it with the turtleneck. I think that's
Probably a good call.
No.
Probably a good call. Okay, let's get to anyone else. At this rate. Actually, no, let's not get to anyone else. Let's just get to Family Feud. You want to do that, Jacob? Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's play the feud. Harmon's going to exit the room. Let's get to Family Feud.
I'm your man, Jacob Lazar, and Harmon's got to step over some wires. Good, he didn't trip. And it's time to play Canucks Conversation Family Feud. Harm's going to exit the studio, and I'll go grab him once Quads is done. Now, you guys are back to 500, so this is a big one. You're 9-9. You guys haven't been above 500, I want to say, since like the third or fourth week. So it's been a while. We'll see. This is a bit of a tougher survey than the last couple weeks, but I do think it's attainable. There's a couple answers you're really going to have to think about. So if you need to use your pass and come back at the end, probably going to be worth it, especially on this survey. All right, Quads, you'll have 25 seconds on the clock. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Which of the following categories will best describe the Vancouver Canucks in the 2029-2030 season? Cup contender, divisional playoff team, wildcard playoff team, mushy middle, or lottery hopeful?
Divisional playoff team.
Which BC city would you most want to watch/cover the Canucks during training camp?
Penticton.
Which current Canuck is least likely to swear in the locker room?
Kevin Lankinen.
Name a Vancouver Giant who made it to the NHL.
Brendan Gallagher.
Name a team who has swept the Canucks in a playoff series.
Oh, why am I blanking?
3 seconds.
Blackhawks.
All right, just ahead of the buzzer. I'm going to go grab Harm. Stall for about 10 seconds.
Chad, am I right about that? Patrick Johnson's sitting right here. Am I right? The Hawks did sweep the Canucks, right? Okay, he's nodding. So here's the thing. And Harmon's not here yet, so I can talk about this. The playoffs, I was young, obviously, when they were in the playoffs before. I remember the 2015 playoffs really well. I remember
Right, Harmon's coming back in, so no giving away answers.
Harmon's coming back. Crushed it. 200 points right there, Harm.
I somehow don't believe you.
Says he doesn't believe me. I think it was good. I think I did good. Jacob's tallying it up. Jacob had a lot on his plate today. He had to come get you from outside the studio. I guess I could have waved to you. That took a lot out of me. I'm not going to lie. I am sweating a little bit. But it was good. It was good. I think I did okay.
You think so? Just based off your facial expressions, you didn't
You were watching?
look so confident.
Oh, man.
I was looking through the glass door.
That's funny. That's funny. Jacob,
So I got some bad news for you, Quads.
Oh, come on.
You got 61 points.
Oh, yikes.
Oh, hard survey. It's a hard survey.
This is why I
It's a
always
hard
trust
survey.
the body language. And
It's a hard survey. It's a hard survey because
based off
I
your
had like
facial
4 great
expressions.
answers.
I feel like I saw PJ laughing at one of your responses, and I was like, oh, I don't think this is
The good news is, Harm, lots of number 1s and number 2s available for you.
How? Okay, whatever. I'll
this is
respect
gonna
the
be
results
tough.
of the survey as best I can.
All right, Harm, you're going to have 30 seconds on the clock. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question, which is a very long question, so be prepared.
Okay.
And if you give one of Quad's answers, you'll hear the buzzer, and I'll ask you to try again. If you can't think of an answer, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. I mentioned to Quads, and he maybe should have used this. You might want to pass and get a little bit more time to think about one or two of these. So use your time wisely. And yeah, let's get going.
Sweet.
You got 139 points you need. It's possible. I believe in you.
Okay.
Which of the following categories will best describe the Vancouver Canucks in the 2029-2030 season? Cup contender, divisional playoff team, wild card playoff team, mushy middle, or lottery hopefuls?
Divisional playoff team.
Try again.
Wild card team.
Which BC city would you most want to watch/cover the Canucks during the training camp?
Victoria.
Which current Canuck is least likely to swear in the locker room?
Pia Suter.
Name a Vancouver Giant who made it to the NHL.
Milan Lucic.
Name a team who has swept the Canucks in the playoffs.
Islanders.
Good work.
Oh, boy.
With lots of time to spare. All right. We're going to go through this together. It's going to be close. Just based off of some of the answers you gave me, I think it's going to be close. We'll see how this
Really?
turns
You
out.
think Harmon might have got 140
I don't
points
think I don't think I
those?
got 140 points off those.
Oh, actually, I just realized you missed the number 1. All right, well, let's see how it goes.
Let's break it down.
Okay, for the first question, the different categories. Quads, you said divisional playoff team.
Yeah, and Harmon said wild card.
Yeah, so that was the number 1 answer.
What, divisional playoff?
Divisional.
Boom. Done,
Wild
my
card
part.
was the number 4. Cup contender was the number 2
Oh,
response.
come on.
Mushy middle was the number 3 response.
Get real. Okay.
So 15 points there, Harmon. Which city would you want to go cover training camp? Quads. Only 2 points there for Penticton.
Wrong,
They were just
just
there.
wrong.
They were just there. Harmon hit the number 1 answer, though, with Victoria. That was 25 points. Kelowna was number 2.
I just want to say I had way more fun in Penticton than I did Victoria.
No, Victoria's superior.
I've been to both cities. I love both cities. Having just done Penticton, I would have answered Victoria here.
No, Penticton.
Which
Life.
current Canuck is least likely to swear in the locker room?
Kevin Lankinen is the right answer.
He was the number 3 answer. He was also my vote when I filled out the survey. Harm, I actually have to check because Pia Suter was not in my top 8. So I need to search here.
That's even more correct than Lankinen.
Oh, actually, okay, sorry. So he actually would have been number 6. I just had it. I didn't have it.
He's just not popular. That is
Yeah. So
So actually,
objectively
right
good
answer.
you got 9 points for Pia Suter.
He's
actually.
the most
I
mild-mannered
I missed
guy.
him. He was actually the number 6 answer. There was a bunch of ties in there. So like
Give me
Lankinen-
1 and
the
2.
top-
Give me 1 and 2.
Yeah.
1 and 2 was Quinn Hughes
Wrong.
and
Wrong.
Tyler Myers.
Also wrong.
Also really wrong.
Just awful answers. People, okay, we win. People don't know.
You
how to
guys have
answer.
to remember, the fans aren't in the locker room with you guys. You have to think about what they are going to answer.
It's not my
Yeah,
fault.
but
You're the one making the questions.
I think
Super
it's-
chat. We got a super chat. Owen Jay-Z. We can't break this down right now, but thanks for the super chat. He said, do you think the Canucks look at Trevor Zegras? Pin it, Jacob. We're going to
Yeah,
talk
we'll
about
get
it.
back to it right when
Open
we're done.
anyone else. We'll talk about that. Owen, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the donation to BC Mental Health
Quinn Hughes
Foundation.
is like the worst.
Yeah.
ever.
Quinn Hughes, Tyler Myers, they're swearing. Let's go, Jacob. Get
Name
get
a
going.
Vancouver Giant who made it to the NHL. Brendan Gallagher was the number 4 answer. Quads, that was also my pick. Habs fan, obviously. Harm, you said Milan Lucic. That was the number 1 answer, matching his at one point jersey number of 27. Bowen Byram was the number 2 answer. Obviously, a lot of talk in this market about Bowen Byram recently. And Evander Kane was the number 3. All right, you need 63 points on this last question, Harm, which unfortunately I can tell you you will not get. Quads, the Blackhawks only 5 points there. They were swept by the Blackhawks, but that was back in like the early 90s, I believe. So people didn't really think about that one.
That's crazy.
Number 1 answer was the San Jose Sharks, the 2013 sweep by the Sharks, which I think a lot of Canucks fans will remember that one. That was really the end of that core and probably stung the most for the age demographic that really is the bulk of Canucks conversation viewers. Islanders, number 2 answer, Harm. So you did get that answer for 23 points. Finished 40 points shy of the victory. Back below 500.
Ty's Hockey Show in the chat said quads and harm when we don't get to go into the room, and then a bunch of angry emojis. You're right.
Yeah,
Don't make questions like that though, Jacob. Come on. Like if we talk
I thought
to these
that
guys,
was a great response.
It's a fun question.
it's a fun question,
question.
but they can't possibly know the answer.
Well, I know, but you guys know that. You have to answer. What have we gone over so many times?
So then
when we ask any question about current Vancouver Canucks,
No.
Quinn Hughes is almost always the number one
That
answer.
kind of
wrong.
defeats the purpose.
It's
because
wrong.
then just like regardless of what the question is, just answer Quinn Hughes or Tyler Myers because they get all the votes.
You know, we got Patrick Johnson in there. I could turn his mic on, have him.
His mic's on.
Yeah, so they're upset about our Family Feud question here. I asked the Canucks Conversation listeners which Canucks swears the least in the locker room.
Right.
And Quads and Harm aren't happy because the number 1 and 2 answers are guys that apparently swear a lot in the locker room. And I've told them you have to answer based on what the viewers and the listeners and the fans would respond with.
Was JT Miller the number 3 answer?
Yeah, and how is JT Miller not on this list?
Come on.
I mean, he literally swore at us.
Yeah,
So what are we
this
talking
was
about?
this was guys who don't swear in the
Least
locker room.
likely.
Least likely, I
Least
get it.
likely,
Oh,
yeah.
that's right. Least likely.
That's what I'm saying.
Just
We're
like-
so off
So
base
what am I
here.
saying here? What am I being asked?
I just needed you to come on and tell these guys that they're just salty for losing.
They're being total. Yeah, you
we
can't
are salty.
fight the quiz.
Okay.
Don't
no
fight the audience.
Whatever.
All right, I'm done. I got to go back to work.
Thanks, BJ.
Brimpy Schwingel. And he's right here. The spirit of the game. He said Family Feud is not about getting the correct answer. It's about getting the answer most people say is correct. So you have to take into account that a lot of people are dumb.
I don't know if that was the most tactful way of phrasing it.
Thanks for voting in our surveys, guys.
I'm sure a comment like that will definitely make sure that people won't troll the survey.
Yeah, we're gonna have a total boycott of the survey this week. Jacob, is the next survey out?
Not yet. It'll be up tomorrow.
You need some time to think about what you're gonna put on there this week.
No, we had a busy show to prep for today, so I didn't have time to make a new survey.
Who really swears the least? Like I would say it's Lankinen. Pia Suter's probably the
Yeah.
right answer. Who
They're
else?
so mild mannered.
PJ, who else swears the least?
I was just thinking about this. Because I think your guys' instincts, like Suter, like absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think who else. Teddy Bluger, maybe?
Well,
No.
Teddy Bluger can swear in 5 different languages.
That's true.
I've also just like
Yeah, we don't even know when he's swearing.
Here, you know what? Okay, I'll wrap this up here by just giving you the list in order of responses. All right, so number 1 was Hughes. Number 2 was Myers. Number 3 was Lankinen. Number 4 was DPD. Tied for number 4 was Bluger. Number 5 was, again, my list is all everywhere, but forward Elias Pettersson and Pia Suter was tied there.
forward Elias Pettersson. Meanwhile, there's a clip that went
Yeah,
viral of him
like-
on social media swearing.
In his rookie year, too. Like, he's done it many times.
I was talking about the video game clip.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
that, too.
No. Yeah.
That's okay. It is what it is.
Anyway, people can their perception is always interesting. That's what's important. To
We're
me.
probably gonna lose the survey anyway. We
Whatever.
lost by 40. Like,
Whatever. I'll try not to be salty.
And we have a second super chat. So 2 super chats to get to now, guys.
And another $6.99 one. Love to see it. This one from Joe Metz. Do you think the Canucks should add someone like Mathieu Olivier? Stick up for our younger guys. I'm all for it.
I don't think Columbus is gonna trade him.
All right.
He's a fan favorite there. They are in the middle of trying to push for the playoffs. I'd be mildly like he is a pending UFA, but I'd be mildly surprised if they move him.
Okay.
I think they'll try and re-sign him.
How about the other super chat? Canucks looking at Zegras. Do you like the idea of them going after Trevor Zegras? I've made my opinion of Trevor Zegras clear. Don't like the player. Don't think he would fit with Rick Tocchet. But people are talking about, maybe a third line center that could blossom into something else.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that.
All comes down to acquisition cost too.
Yeah, that's a huge key is acquisition cost. I'm not the biggest Zegras fan as far as his personality and just hearing stories about him. I don't think he's put it this way, when you're trying to build a culture and set like a higher bar for professional standards and making the most out of your talent. I look at Zegras as a player that has so much talent but hasn't been able to make the most of it. I don't think he has a good reputation around those lines of, okay, you've got the talent. How much work have you put in to actually level up and take the next step? So I wonder about the personality and locker room fit. I would also add, though, that, man, he is so talented, and it depends on the acquisition cost, right? How low of a price are we talking?
Yeah, and no team wants star players who don't work hard, right? In the gym and stuff. So, okay. Let's go to anyone else, as we open anyone else already. But let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. The home of our electric watch parties, Greta's a great spot to be, and we hope to see you for all of our watch parties all season long. But even if we're not there, you certainly should be. Just minutes from the arena, come by before and after the game, or whatever event you're downtown for. With arcade games, weekly drink specials, and the recently updated street food menu, Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. Canada vs. USA watch along, hosted by Sakaris and Price, Saturday, February 15th, presented by Fountain Tire in support of the Social Run Club YVR. Tickets are just $10. Get them at nationgear.ca. I'm getting more and more excited for the Four Nations face-off. I gotta be honest with you.
I'm hoping Sidney Crosby can play. I actually have a friend who had planned out flying out for the Four Nations, was planning on buying tickets and everything, and he's waiting because he's a huge Sidney Crosby fan, and he's not going to go if Sid is unavailable, but will buy immediately once he knows if Sid plays. And honestly, I kind of understand where he comes from, where he's kind of he's not the best player on Team Canada, obviously, but he's sort of the face of Team Canada, with just the legacy around him, and it's just so exciting to me. Like, I really want to see him, McDavid, McKinnon on the same team.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, I know maybe it'll be mixed opinion, but Quinn Hughes, you want to see Quinn Hughes too. You want to see the best players representing their country. You absolutely do. And again, let's not forget, this is a tune-up for the Olympics, and we want to see Sidney Crosby in the Olympics next year. We want to see Quinn Hughes in the Olympics. You said there was an update. Can you pull that up? Patrick Alvin spoke with Ian McIntyre of Sportsnet, and they were talking about Quinn Hughes. Alvin saying that Hughes is hopeful to play on Saturday. Yeah, the Canucks hope to see Quinn Hughes play Saturday versus Toronto, which is a home game, 4 p.m., believe it or not. But it's largely the captain's call for Team USA at Four Nations. This was the quote that IMAC provided. Quinn is extremely professional. He knows his body and what he can do or not do, so I trust him a lot. We're supporting him in his position. I hope Quinn Hughes, if he thinks he can go, I hope he goes to Four Nations. Like, I hope he gets that opportunity. That's something he wants to do.
Yeah, just like Alvin said, I trust that Quinn understands the stakes of the playoffs. He more than anybody wants to see this team make the playoffs.
Yep.
He knows how important he is for that chase. I don't think he's the type to recklessly put himself in a position to get hurt at Four Nations. I trust his decision-making and process. I don't think he's the impulsive type to just take a reckless risk. Obviously, if you're a Canucks fan, you love the idea of him potentially having two full weeks off to prepare for a huge stretch drive. But I would just say I trust Quinn's decision-making and judgment here.
I'm trying to shake off this Family Feud loss, but I think we might have to ask Manny Malhotra for his opinion on it. Manny Malhotra joins the show a bit later. Get your anyone else's in, folks. I want to see what people are talking about. People are asking about Elias Pettersson fighting. That's on my list. I want to ask Manny about that because I've heard, and Manny might know better than anybody. He might keep the cards close to the chest, which I respect. But I brought it up yesterday. I heard that Elias Pettersson was either before or after practice was practicing his fighting technique a little bit, looking at where to grab on the jersey when you're fighting. And he's a big boy. Like he's a big boy, and if he can add that element to his game, he's already obviously shown some body checking ability. I like it.
By the way, the penalty log on Miles Wood.
Oh yeah,
in that game.
Yeah, frustrated.
Was so funny. Just like, I'm gonna read it. Dmitry Filipovich tweeted it out, and obviously DPD was the one that kind of got Miles Wood to lose his mind. Here's the penalty log: Miles Wood fighting, Miles Wood cross-checking, Miles Wood roughing, Miles Wood slashing, Miles Wood high sticking, Miles Wood game misconduct, all in the third period.
And all thanks to Elias Pettersson. Okay, I like this one from Harry. This is another super chat. How much money we raised today? It's like up to $15 now.
$15 for the BC Mental Health Foundation.
Excellent. There's another super chat here from Harry. He said, trade for Rasmus Andersson. Solidify an epic top 4. Susie a first and Mancini. Trade him next year if Willander is pushing. Razor sharp logic. I like it. I want Rasmus Andersson. I still want him. Unfortunately, Harry, for you and I've been talking about Rasmus Andersson since the start of the season. The Flames aren't getting rid of Rasmus Andersson. Like, they've now gotten to the point where they've let every team know that, and they are going to re-sign Rasmus Andersson. He doesn't want to leave. The team doesn't want him to leave. Usually when that happens, and you got a lot of cap space, usually you're able to work out a contract, and it sounds like Rasmus Andersson is going to stay a Calgary Flame.
Yeah, he's a pipe dream, unfortunately.
Did I make a Pirate Pack bet with you on that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I think I might have, but I appreciate it. We'll go back and watch it. Okay. This is from Kevin Smeltzer Music. I want you to read it. Right where my thumb is. You read that question.
Anyone else? Would you rather have Darnell Nurse at 9.5 per or quads on your Family Feud team? Hey, listen. If Edmonton's willing to retain 1 million,
oh my god,
1 million of that.
Oh, stop!
All of a sudden, that contract doesn't sound too bad.
Wow, is this how JT Miller feels? Everybody forgets all the great things I've done. I've been great, Family Feud, for the past 4 weeks.
Yeah, this is like remember two or 3 years ago during the height of JT being criticized for his like
2021
lack of
season.
back-checking,
Yeah,
and he's like, I think I've been playing really well actually. This is exactly
maybe
that.
he was on to something.
Quad's saying everybody forgetting all the good things that
Look, it's not about the
I've
points.
done.
It's not about the points. It's about my process. It's about me being sharp
which has also been
defensively.
horrible.
No, my process has been good. My process has been good.
Yeah, okay. By the way, I saw the Rangers Boston game yesterday. Man, that line, they've stumbled onto something. I'll be honest, that's one part of the trade I hadn't considered was the Rangers shifting Zibanejad to the wing so that he can be their Brock Besser, just a guy who doesn't need to drive play but can get open and is just a really good finisher. And Zibanejad's got 6 points in 3 games since JT has arrived. That's a combination I hadn't thought of as far as Miller, Panarin, and then Zibanejad on the wing. I thought all 3 of Zibanejad, Miller, and Trocheck would have been down the middle. Another strong game for that line against Boston, and it's so funny. People are gonna look at the production and say, "Oh, look, they traded the wrong guy." The Canucks weren't getting this version of JT Miller with how emotionally invested he is there. He's been a wrecking ball first man in on the forecheck. He's actually taken on a very different role where in Vancouver he was a puck dominant player, but when you're playing with Panarin and you're an MVP caliber guy, Miller shifted to a role where he's just first man in on the forecheck, forcing turnovers, and more of a net front threat, just constantly driving the net and trying to be available for backdoor tap-ins, which is very different from the role he kind of had in Vancouver, but very effective nonetheless.
Do the Rangers make the playoffs?
I hope not. Not because of JT, but but because I want to see fresh new blood.
Sure.
In the East, I want to see teams like Columbus and Ottawa make it.
Something I wish we asked Johnny Lazarus, who joined us on Monday's show. Not to use the word failure, but it is the Rangers made this trade with the idea of okay, this is going to be our push to the playoffs. If they don't make the dance, they still have JT for the years to come. So it doesn't make this trade a loss necessarily, but they would not be accomplishing their goal if they didn't make the playoffs. They made this trade with the idea of, okay, we're going to make the playoffs and JT is going to be a playoff performer. You don't acquire JT Miller and not expect your team to make the playoffs.
Yeah, especially when you have an older, aging core. It's not like they have a really long timeline for
Miller aside, just
for
the rest
contention.
Of that
That's been a discussion point in New York in general. I will say, watching them play the last couple of games,
I don't know if they
really.
No.
I think they could make it,
unless
man.
they all buy into team defense, that's the number one thing I've seen. Is just
That
blown
is
coverage.
that is a very valid concern, but I'm more looking at how mediocre the rest of the teams are, and that's kind of the thought process. Like Detroit's in a wild card spot, and I know they've been playing excellent hockey. Detroit's on a 7-game heater. Coaching changes help them out, but you look at the talent on that Rangers roster, especially Shesterkin backstopping them. They've got to overtake the Isles. I'm talking now teams that are ahead of the Rangers, but not in a wild card spot. Islanders, Blue Jackets, Boston. I don't think Boston's very good. Islanders are kind of mediocre, and then Columbus. I like them; they're fun, but Kirill Marchenko, their leading scorer, just broke his jaw, I believe. So that's a big blow for them. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rangers make a charge. They're 4 points back of the final wild card spot. I think they've got a shot, man.
We will see. We will see. S. Little Boston in the chat said New York blue line is not strong except for Schneider. Fox has been disappointing. When I watch the team play, and I know they've been criticized a ton for this. Like, you've seen it. It's usually the local broadcasts are criticizing them a lot. You see the defenseman diving in, and then the forwards just being like, oh, shouldn't have done that. And they're not like, okay, I'm going to rotate. I'm going to reload. None of that. None of that's happening with this team. It's a lot of puck watching when I watch Rangers games. You see it a lot. Sean Avery had a video where he broke down, I don't know if you saw it, Artemi Panarin's back check and made a good point that, like, this is a leader on your team and he's not back checking. Again, you're just trying to get to a wild card spot if you're the Rangers at this point in the season, but I also look at that team and say, like, okay, your leaders need to start stepping up. And look, JT's invested, so it's not, he should be part of the solution, which is why they traded for him. But I still wonder about the rest of the team. I do.
They've had some of these team defense flaws for a while. They've been worse this year, no question. But especially if JT can get Zibanejad going, now all of a sudden you've got a 5-on-5 offensive gear that they previously didn't have. Don't get me wrong, they're flawed, and I question them as actual cup contenders if they do make the postseason. But man, I just don't like the teams around them that much, considering the circumstances. When I look at Detroit, when I look at Boston, Columbus, considering the Marchenko injury, and then the Islanders.
Let's ask Manny Malhotra who he thinks is going to make the playoffs.
Still waiting for Manny. He should be here in a couple minutes.
Excellent. Let's get this out of the way then. Let's get this ad read out of the way. Because Manny, who's going to join us in a few minutes here, is brought to you by Pacific Toyota dealers who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X is backed with all the things you want in an SUV, like the room to fit all your family, friends, hockey bags, and whatever else you've got. And of course, the BZ4X is backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives, and now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X from 3.29% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Yeah, people are giving their takes about the Rangers getting in, and it seems a little split, but Dom's model, this is from Cali Canuck, Dom's model has the Canucks at 81% and the Rangers at 32% to make the playoffs. I wonder how much of that is just that there's teams ahead of them.
Yeah, that is the difficult part. I just view the Rangers as a team that could go on a run. Like, just really go on a heater where they win 5 of 6, where they win 11 of 15 or something like that. They're the type of team that has the elite talent to get hot. Like, let's not forget they won the President's Trophy last year. They have a ceiling case there where when they're all firing, the ceiling that they have, a lot of these other teams in contention for a wild card spot can't hit. I think they're closer to a 50-50 to get in is my take. I think 32% sounds a little low. I'll also say I think 81% for the Canucks sounds a little too high. I think the model's probably underrating Calgary's chances.
Walking Blind said, I think the Canucks have a better chance just because of the competition in the West.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just Calgary at this point that stands out as a legit threat, and Canucks are a superior team than the Flames on paper, We'll see. I view the Canucks as closer to 65 to 70% odds, which is still like I'm expecting them to make the playoffs, and to me it would be really disappointing if they don't get in.
Working on Manny. Sorry. Can you stall?
Yeah, if you pass me the YouTube live chat, I can read stuff.
There you go. Scroll through.
Let's see. I've never had to do this before. Brad, Detroit is the quote wagon now, though. I mean, they've won 7 in a row. The most surprising thing about Detroit is how red hot their power play has been all year. Like, looking at that unit on paper, who would have thought that? I'm going to pull it up now. That they've got the third best power play in the NHL. The Red Wings, which, yeah, they've got good players in Larkin and Raymond, but you wouldn't look at that as a group that would be up there with like Winnipeg, Vegas, New Jersey, Tampa as having the best power plays in the NHL. That's been massive for them. The other surprising part about Detroit has been how good their goaltending has been, especially during this year. Heading into this year, I was looking at a Talbot line tandem, and it just didn't inspire much confidence, especially for Talbot. Yeah, his save percentage on paper was pretty good, but coming from an LA environment where he was insulated defensively to Detroit environment where team defense was a massive issue for the Red Wings last year, that's been like their goaltending has been a pleasant surprise during this hot streak as well.
Love it. All right. We do have Manny Malhotra now. So let's bring him in, the head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks, who we're very pleased to have on the show. Manny, thanks so much for doing this. How you doing?
Pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me. Doing well, thank you.
Yeah, super excited to have you here. We've got a few questions. Right now, this market is a bit drunk on Elias Pettersson here. What can you tell us about your experience so far with the young defenseman who's made a really good impression through his first few NHL games?
Well, I think the thing that stands out for me most, the way he started the season, you don't know what to expect from a 20-year-old beginning his pro career. But from day one, he was very poised with the puck. He knew exactly who he was as a player. He didn't come in trying to be something that he wasn't. And he stuck to that game plan. Jordan Smith, the D coach here, has done a really good job working with him, kind of going through video and cleaning up some of the aspects of his game. But for the most part, he sticks to what he does best. He's physical, he kills plays, and he advances pucks on breakouts. So the way he has started and kind of continued that process throughout the season so far has been a very pleasant surprise for us.
Distinct his identity is, and him really knowing his game, knowing his role. Can that sometimes be difficult for young players as they're climbing the ranks, because maybe in lower leagues or levels they're able to kind of dominate in their first power play, and now as they climb the ranks and it becomes more difficult, they can sort of struggle to find what's my role, what's my identity. Is that an uncommon trait for a player like DPD to pick that up so quickly?
It is somewhat uncommon. You find that mistake being made by a lot of young guys or young pros trying to find their way to becoming an everyday NHLer or an everyday pro, is understanding what makes you good, understanding what has gotten you to that level, and then executing that to the best of your ability. And that's PD in a nutshell. He didn't come in trying to run a power play. He didn't come in trying to skate pucks all the way up the ice. He knows exactly what he needs to do, and he has followed that formula to a T. And obviously it's paid off for him to get a couple NHL games under his belt and continue to play with that confidence. Is a credit to him understanding what it takes for him to be a pro at the next level.
Manny, this Abbotsford team as a whole, a bit of a rut recently, but even more recently, really kind of turned it around. I was there a couple weeks ago, and I asked you just about your team's response. I think it was the San Jose Barracuda you guys were playing, and there was a bad bounce off the stanchion, 4-3 early in the third. I'm sure you remember the game. You talked about your team's response to that and how you're not sure if they would respond the same way a month ago. What kind of growth have you seen from your team as a whole this year?
I think that the biggest growth for us is a belief in ourselves. number one, trusting the structure and trusting the system that we're trying to play. Once they bought into that, and then playing it to the best of their ability, it's one thing to know the system, but within that, it's the individual efforts of guys, how hard they are on pucks, how willing they are to forecheck pucks back defensively for our D-men to kill plays and get on top of pucks with numbers. Once you have that level of buy-in, but also the guys' willingness to compete and push one another, that's what has kind of been the biggest growing point for me. And it's a credit to them understanding what it takes to be successful and what it takes to win on a nightly basis. You look at some of the teams in the league and they don't surprise you with anything. You know exactly what their game plan is going to be. You know exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to try to score, but they basically execute it and say, try to stop us. So we're trying to get to that level where we play one way and execute it to the best of our ability. And in doing so, the last few weeks, it's obviously paid off for us.
Jonathan Lecker-Mackey appears to have had a pretty smooth, seamless transition to the AHL, 14 goals in 24 games. What stands out about his game to you? What's it been like working with him? And what do you think the next step for him developmentally looks like?
Well, obviously the couple of things in his game that make him a special player is, number one, his ability to get out of tight spots. He has an incredible set of hands, and he's in a lot of situations offensively where he has numbers closing on him. He has back pressure. He has D with tight gaps, but he finds a way to advance a play and make something out of nothing, which is a pretty special talent to have. And he's able to do those things at high pace. So that's number one. And then obviously you talked about his goal scoring ability. He does have an elite shot. He gets it off quite quickly, but the most impressive thing for me in the way he's scoring is he's getting to tough places. He gets inside, he gets to the slot, he gets around the net. And if you look at his heat map or you look at his goals, the majority of them are within 10, 15 feet of the net, and probably less than that. So his willingness to get inside is what is making him so successful at this level. And the progression for him or the evolution of his game is just continue that, to play with that fearlessness of being able to get inside and continue to execute with the puck. You saw when he did get a couple games in the NHL, he was able to do the same thing. He advanced plays. He got pucks out of tough spots to his line mates and to D-men. So he's an intelligent player that is just learning what it's like and how heavy guys are at the next level.
A guy who earned a spot on the NHL team at the start of the year, obviously he's now back down in the A, and he's playing really well, is Aatu Räty. With a guy like that, what do you do as a coach when a player, and again, I don't know how he reacted to it, you know better than I do, but when a player is probably on cloud nine because he made the NHL team and then he gets sent down, like, how do you as a coach kind of massage that relationship?
Well, it's not really a lot of massaging that needs to take place. It's the attitude of the player coming down that dictates what those next few weeks or what that next step in their evolution is going to be. And I think that's a credit to the people and the players that we have in this organization. The guys that have come down have all had the right attitude about them. They're obviously disappointed. They all want to be in the NHL, but they realize that the opportunity in the American League to play more minutes, get their game in order, continue to get their touches on the puck, it's a part of their developmental process. It's not they come down with a woe is me attitude and this sucks and I hate this. It's, they've come back with a positive mindset. And, if you look at Atu's game, he has excelled in the last few weeks because of that mindset. He comes here, he works his tail off in practice. That translates right into the game. And we don't always, we're not preaching him getting points and you need to produce offense for us. It's more a product of him doing all the right things that he's now in position to get these points and get these goals. He's doing what's expected of him and what's asked of him within our system.
Organizationally, it seems like there have been, many situations, Ratu being one of them, where some of your top prospects will come up, get 5 to 15 games, however many it is, get a taste of the NHL, and then go back to the American League to work on their craft. What do you see as the advantages of this type of player development strategy?
Well, it is a process to become an everyday NHLer. There's so many learned behaviors and lessons that take place throughout the course of the year, and for guys to get those sample sizes, there's obviously a number of things that play into that, but for guys to get that sample size, a lot of times they're learning that every week, every month, every quarter of the season, you want to call it, the play gets that much better and that much more intense and that much harder. So obviously when guys get called up, they're full of adrenaline, they're playing on a high, they're at the NHL level, but you soon realize that it is an absolute grind to have to play your absolute best every other night of the week. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing with the guys getting a sample size. Perhaps that adrenaline wears off a little bit and they're not getting the minutes they would like, or we as an organization would like to see them have, which means they're not getting their touches, which means they're not continuing to develop. So as much as you talk about the American League being a developmental league, the NHL is not a developmental league. Your game needs to be NHL ready when you get there, and it has to stay NHL ready and to be an everyday NHL player. So it's kind of for them, it's a lesson in the fact that it is a process, and to stay there on a daily basis, there can't be too many ups and downs in your game. It's the consistency at which you play your game that's going to keep you there.
Manny, another player I want to ask you about, Kirill Kudryavtsev, another young defenseman. I see the point totals, but when I watch him play, I've noticed a pretty solid two-way game as well. What have you made of his rookie season?
I think he goes in that same boat in terms of you don't know what you're going to get out of a 20-year-old coming into this league. But for him, you touched on it, he's getting points. And if someone were just to look at the stat line, you would be kind of amazed that a 20-year-old defenseman's coming up with these kind of numbers. But for him, it's a product of him doing the right things. He's not a very large defenseman by any means, but he does a great job with his stick, killing plays. He's aggressive on pucks. Defensively, he gets into people and he has great gaps. So that allows him to not have to defend very much. And then getting those assists, he knows when to advance the puck, when to get it to the net, when to deliver, when it's just time to be safe and either punt a puck or just put it back to the bottom. So his intelligence is what has allowed him to get those point totals.
I'm curious for yourself as a head coach now, based off your playing experience, how did that shape the way you try and coach, and who are maybe some of your most significant coaching influences?
I think kind of who I am as a coach is kind of a collection of all the things I'd seen over the years as a player. I know as a player, you distinctly remember things that you like a coach does, things that you don't like, the way a message is delivered, certain drills that are run in practice, the way things are taught. So for me, it's a constant kind of record keeping of the things that clicked with me and that worked with me. And then on the flip side, things that I absolutely hated as a player, I don't want those to show up in the way I coach. And as far as influences in that, I had the opportunity to play for Ken Hitchcock in Columbus. Obviously a very intelligent coach, understood the game really, really well. And the way he taught it wasn't ideal for me, but we had a great rapport, and eventually I understood how to take the message, not the tone. And he was a good teacher of the game. And then going from there to Todd McClellan, who I found was an incredible communicator. There was no gray areas with him. You knew exactly where you stood. You knew exactly what was expected of you. And it was not only the tone, but the way he said things. And he never mixed words, never, like I said, you always knew where you stood with him. So for me, I try to be as communicative as possible with my players. I try to make sure that there's no gray areas. They understand what's expected within the system, what's acceptable, what is not, and then more so what my expectations are of them as a player within the system. So I think those things for today's athlete are really important, that they understand the why and they want to know all the information.
That's really interesting. That's a great answer. Thank you for going so in depth on that. We'll give you some rapid fire ones to close it out here. I've got one for you. The chat is asking a lot about your face-off ability. How did you get so good at face-offs during your playing career?
Again, it's over the course of a playing career, you just kind of develop things that work, things that don't work. So it's going against different guys. And for me, really, it was understanding what I was good at, and then just honing in on those things and not trying to have 6 or 7 different moves that I would try in the face-off circle. But I had 1 or 2 of my go-tos that I knew would work. And then the other part of it was thinking back to the early in my career to how I finished. As you get older, you understand how strong guys are on their stick and how physical it is in the circle. So once you get a book on guys and you understand how hard you need to go, then it just becomes repetition.
Manny, I apologize, you might have already answered this, but why Abbotsford? What made Abbotsford the right fit for you?
A number of things. Number one, it's the quality of people here. Obviously, I know the organization, wanting to be a part of it over the last couple of years, the transformation that it's gone through. And for me, looking at it from the outside, I wanted an understanding of what Talk was doing to turn it around in Vancouver. That was intriguing. And then in my discussions with RJ in the summertime, just understanding how important or how much of an emphasis they put on the development of the guys in Abbotsford and how closely that relationship is to guys getting called, whatever it is, 70 kilometers down the road, and the necessity to get some players up and running was intriguing for me. The fact that there is an emphasis on guys developing, and I don't want to say the stress of it, but the importance that they put on it, I enjoy that stress. I want it to mean something. I want there to be value there. I didn't want to be in a situation where it was, here's your guys, do whatever you want, and we'll see what happens at the end of the year. There's a definite plan here in place. So the way RJ laid it out, it was definitely something that I wanted to be a part of.
Manny, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it. We'll get you back on the show for sure. Have a great day. Thanks so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
There he is, Manny Malhotra, the head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks. The chat was loving that. Those were great answers. Those were phenomenal answers. What I really want to focus on is the coaching influences. That was such a thoughtful, that might be the best answer any guest has ever given on this show, I think.
Yeah, you can tell he was really mindful of his experiences as a player and thinking of how to, for example, mentioning Hitchcock and McClellan, taking pieces and tidbits from every coach that he had, appreciating what worked there, what maybe he could improve on once he became a head coach. It's clear that he's put a lot of thought and intention behind his coaching style. It isn't just a case of player retires and goes, I understand the game really well, I am going to excel as a coach. He's clearly put a lot of thought and prep into thinking about exactly, like we talk about players finding their identity, he's put so much thought into his own identity as a head coach too.
That was awesome. That was great. Our thanks again to Manny Malhotra for joining the show. We got a few super chats during that, which I felt so bad about because I'm like, hold on, Manny, we've got a super chat. But we do have 2 super chats. We've got a big one from Barry Robinson. Is it Robinson or Robison? Robeson. Barry Robeson, who donated $50, $49.99, and said, am I crazy for thinking the trade returns are a net positive for the Canucks' performance as a team? Doesn't matter how Miller's performing at the Rangers. He wasn't delivering at that level for the Canucks this year. And I absolutely agree. Like, that's what we talk about when we talk about this Miller trade is they had to rip off the Band-Aid. Could they have gotten more if they traded him 2 years ago? Yeah, maybe. But with all of the context of what was happening with this team and them being so public and needing to be public ultimately, with the fact that they needed to get rid of one of these guys in Miller or Pettersson, and maybe both, when you take into consideration all of that context, I think the Canucks did fine. Like, again, I brought this up earlier when people were scoffing at the idea of a proposed trade of Philip Hedl, a first, and whoever else. It ended up being Mancini. But before, when the first deal was kind of leaked, people scoffing at the idea. I was like, do you not remember the Bo Horvat trade? And like, you're getting this money off your books too, which is an added value for you, the Canucks. I tried to point that out to people, and you know, you get it was just a rental, you need a new contract. Okay. Miller's 32. He's going to be 32 years old, and he's still signed for years. Getting off that money was important for the Canucks, and I think you take all that in consideration, they did fine on this trade, and I think that was my reaction.
Well, especially now that they have Pettersson locked up to a team-friendly extension. That was a huge part of when I saw the second big trade go down. My first thought was, I can't really grade this until I see what they do with Marcus Pettersson, because if he had walked away in the summer, it would have been a disaster, right? This just wasn't a year where you give up a first-round pick for a rental. I don't think this team is realistically ready for a deep playoff run now, but to have him with the team, not just for this season, but at a favorable cap hit for the next 6 years, that makes the end result of those two trades look a lot better.
Got another super chat, $2 super chat from Spatzili in the chat, who said, shout out Greta Bar YVR. I love it. And then he also threw one in, said, Manny's the type of mature presence we need in the room, a veteran culture guy in the top 6 or 9. And people taking a walk down memory lane. Swerve and Irvin said this. And of course, Spatzili, thank you for the super chat. We really appreciate it. On Manny, Swerve and Irvin said this, what a G. I don't think people realize what a ripple effect that he had on the 2011 team and how much of their success was tied to Manny. Another thing about Manny was that... Where did it go? And I lost it. It was about how he came in and was just like every defensive zone draw, they would send out Manny, and then it just let the Sedins cook at a whole new level. And someone said that. I just can't remember where it was. I apologize, but it was higher in the chat. But yeah, giving Manny some love for his time as a Canuck, which he absolutely deserves. I'll tell you a quick Manny story. And I was going to bring it up to him, but we kind of ran out of time and I wasn't, anonymously, I was talking to a player from the area in Vancouver who used to train. You know how all the players like Sam Reinhart, all these guys train out here, right? Or they go to Kelowna. He was training with Manny. And Manny was kind of running things because he was the most veteran guy. And they were doing a drill. And I wanted to ask Manny, but I should have asked Manny. We'll get him back on the show. He was doing a drill where you had to take face-offs. And then you had to skate all the way to the end of the ice, come back, and then take a face-off and win the draw. Like, it wasn't just practice winning a face-off against nobody. It was like, win the draw against a talented face-off guy who's not tired. The other guy isn't skating, okay? And if you lose the draw, you had to skate back down to the end of the ice, come back hard, right? And then win the draw. And you had to keep going until you won the draw. And the other guy wasn't skating. He was well rested and just waiting for you to come back to take a draw against him. And again, this is a summer workout. And the player I was talking to brought up that some guys were like, why are we doing this? And he's like, what Manny said, according to this player, was, I'm not in the NHL if I can't win that draw when I'm dog tired.
That's an awesome story, man.
Absolutely. I should have told this to Manny. But it's weird telling someone a story about themselves, especially when I heard it from someone else, because Manny could easily just be like, don't remember that. Or like, that never happened.
Just another day at the office.
Yeah, just another day at the office. Yeah, shout out Manny. We're gonna try to have some more great guests as we go along. Not that our regular guests like Jeff Patterson isn't great, but I like mixing it up, Throw a little Todd Bertuzzi in there. He's been on the show. Sammy Salo. Tony Gallagher. Love it. I love it. Okay. Oh wait, it's already 3:11. We can wrap up the show, right?
Yeah, nice
We're
long
really
episode today.
Yeah, it's so weird because I'm used to like anyone else being the last thing we do, but I guess we've done anyone else, and I guess we did a pretty good job of it. So let's wrap up today's show with our Bet365 bet of the day. We got to start a new streak. We lost last night. 1-goal game. Damn it.
They were up 2-1, but
I know.
you know what? I was watching that game. As soon as they went up 2-1, I don't bet, but I was like, if I was a betting man, I would 100% bet the Rangers come back because the Bruins were dead tired. They didn't deserve to be up 2-1 in that game.
Do we keep riding underdogs? Or do we go with a favorite? Ugh, this is a tough one. The NHL slate tonight, who do I like? I don't want to just pick a random team, but I will pick the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Columbus Blue Jackets are playing the Utah Hockey Club tonight, and they are underdogs at home. Disrespecting my Blue Jackets. Plus 135 on the money line. You can get Blue Jackets to beat the Utah Hockey Club. That was our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. It must be 90 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly.
By the way, the broken jaw Marchenko suffered, which, by the way, Marchenko is probably the most underrated player in the NHL as far as people not talking enough about him. He is so sick. 55 points in 53 games. I was mentioning the broken jaw. Apparently, he was sitting on the bench and got struck by a loose puck. That's how it happened.
No.
Yeah. I didn't see the clip, but I saw the Sportsnet story about it, and yeah, he underwent surgery for the break on Monday, and there isn't a definitive timeline, but typically it's sort of 6 to 8 week thing. So unlucky to just be sitting on the bench, get struck by a loose puck, and your best forward is now out of commission.
That's crazy.
Is Sean Monahan back? I know he was banged up for a while there. I'm curious.
I don't think he's back yet.
Man, that's tough because that duo, yeah, he's not back yet. That duo, Monahan and Marchenko at 5-on-5, they were just blasting teams, just dominating teams. So to not have either one of them, that's that's tough.
That started with, he's going to miss at least the next 7 to 10 days. That was the first update. That was an understatement. Announced on January 25th that he's going to miss an additional 6 to 8 weeks due to the wrist injury he suffered on January 7th. That's crazy. So he's out for a while. Like he's going to be out through February. Like that's a mid-March timeline to be back.
See, that was part of the reason why when I was talking about the Rangers and hey, they could go on a run here and get back into the playoff spot. Like that's part of it is Columbus has legit been a good team this year, but no Marchenko, no Monahan. That's 2/3 of their top line. That's
a tough blow. Taking him on the money line tonight. There's one last. Anyone else? Let's get to it. I wanted to answer this. This is from Brad, who was the first person to bring up a face-off question for Manny. Brad said this. He called him Mancini. We say it right on this show. Victor Mancini. Will he get into the lineup tonight? We don't know the lineup tonight. They didn't skate today in San Jose, but I would like to see Victor Mancini get a game. I don't think that's crazy. I also, having just talked to Manny Malhotra, would love to see Victor Mancini go get some AHL games and go get some work in with Manny. I would love to see it.
Yeah.
At least let him play.
I think for Mancini, if you want to get a look at him at the NHL level, this is the perfect opportunity to do it, right? The Sharks are a pretty weak team. Quinn Hughes might be back Saturday, so that's another blue line spot. I know Quinn's a lefty, but that's another blue liner where how is Mancini going to fit in the top 6 there? I think if you want to get a look at him with the big club, this is the game to do it.
I agree. Love to see it. Would love to see it. The chat apparently agreed that we're calling him Martini. You guys can do that. I'm not mispronouncing an Italian name. Or why Martini? I don't get it.
You should be calling him Vittorio.
Yeah, you gotta go with Vittorio.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Calling people out for not pronouncing his name right.
Well, does he go by that?
That's what he's listed on the NHL site and thus the Canucks site as Vittorio. Did you not get that? I sent that to you yesterday. I thought you would be like ecstatic to see the full
No,
Italian
I
name.
remember seeing it. I didn't know you sent it to me, but I remember seeing it. Okay. Thanks for sending me it, Jacob. I appreciate it. Vittorio Mancini.
Yeah,
Okay.
I told you have to show your nonno because he'd be so happy to see the good Italian name on the roster.
Ooh, my nonno's not too happy with the Canucks right now.
Why?
Got a call from my nonno. You've met my nonno.
Yeah, of
Try
course.
explaining the JT Miller trade to nonno. I get a call. Dave, I thought JT Miller was a good player. Yeah, he was. No, he was a good player, but I don't get you try explaining that. He's not happy right now.
I honestly just walking around Vancouver lately, I've heard so many just like random people trying to like explain the Miller trade to
Yes.
other people who clearly aren't like are Canucks fans but are pretty casual and sort of trying to describe it in similar terms and having a tough time.
Yeah.
I get that. I get
My nonno's a little too old to have Facebook. Also, English isn't his first language, but if he had a Facebook account, he would be on every Canucks Army post, being like they should have kept Miller, for sure.
I will point out here, Stuart Hunter in the chat is giving the correct Italian pronunciation. Vittorio would be Vittorio. You got to pronounce both T's, and Mancini would be
Mancini, I think.
Yeah, it'd be Mancini.
I'm still gonna say Mancini. I'm not gonna do the accent for it. Only when I'm impersonating my nonno. Okay. Anything else you want to get?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Real quick. And folks, if you're not a longtime listener of the show, thanks for tuning into Canucks Convo. But Chris and I, about 3 years ago, when we used to do the show at my nonno's house upstairs, right? We used to do it in his house. Chris and my nonno are buds, just so you know. And I mean, you were there too.
Yeah.
You came in too. We had an idea because he had a stair lift to get upstairs. He stays downstairs, but he has a stair lift. We had an idea to get him up and just give him a mic and just get him on the show because Rajcraft said nonno's trade analysis incoming. We actually had the idea of trying to get him on the show. Don't think he'd really go for it, but I like talking hockey with him.
That would have been awesome. I remember those days recording because I'd drop by, what was it, like once a week or once every 2 weeks?
Yeah. Nonno asks how you are. He rattles off the weather to you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We'll close it out there. Did I do bet? Yeah, I did everything.
Yep, you're
Okay,
good.
we'll close it out there. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar. Our thanks again to Manny Malhotra for joining today's show, and thanks to you, the listener, for joining today's show as well. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.